Well, hello Internet students, Professor Z here, and I am going to be your guided tour guide here to take you through these videos. And oddly enough, this video is going to be very technical, and also it is got a lot of moving parts to it. So pay attention and learn how to properly pour a footer for your many-ton home. Whether it's 10 tons, 20 tons, 60 tons, I'm going to show you how to do that. But first, oddly enough, I've got game cameras all around the northern Rocky Mountains where I live, and on my property, of course, and I picked up a number of wild animals throughout the excursion of my do-it-yourself project build. And here's just a few of the pictures. I've got a grizzly bear that's on the property. Of course, the house is already built. Rabbits, wild horses, an owl trying to land, moose, elk, wolves, coyotes, and of course my favorite is gazelles. Alright, so let's get right into it. Please put on your technical hat, your mathematical mindset, and let's get into it. So, tools and equipment. You're going to need a 100-foot tape measure, cement trawl, 12-foot tape measure, chalk line, tool belt with ample supplies, orange spray paint, and that's a given. I can't get around orange spray paint. I know some people like red, some people like black or whatever. I like orange or bright colored. Even a bright red would work fine too. String, stakes, rake, shovel, pickaxe, laser, and bobcat with proper attire. Step 1, planning the milestone. Alright, so the first thing you need to do, students, always is consult your certified blueprints. I gave a little tidbit about this in the upcoming lessons, but honestly, all the liability passes to your architect when they actually design all of these blueprints for you. I think I had 7 or 8 stapled together, and they came out on the 4 feet by 3 feet long sheets, or however big that they are. But there was one just for footer and concrete pouring. So had the type of concrete, the depth of the footer, the width of the footer, number of rebar that goes into the footer, how to clear it, how to build it. All of that stuff goes to your architect when he actually builds this for you. So what I'm trying to say is hint, students, do not do this yourself. Do not tell everybody you're going to do a DIY project and then try to build the entire structure out of thin air, out of your own mindset. Sit down with a certified architect and spend the quality time to get the information that you need. Alright, step 2, spray paint footer lines. Okay, so do you see your excavated hole at this point? Do you notice something missing? Correct. Your orange spray painted lines, which you initially did to map out your excavation. Now, so go ahead and grab your aerosol can of orange spray paint or red, sledgehammer, stakes, string, and tape measure, and you're going to perform the same measurements as you did before, except instead of giving yourself a generous 2 to 4 feet extra on the perimeter size, because when you excavated the hole, you wanted to go an extra 2 to 4 feet so that you could walk around your footer. So that's one thing important to remember, students, is when you're excavating, do not excavate to the dimensions of your footer, okay? Because you won't have enough room to walk around it and actually build out the footer. You got to go an extra 2 to 4 feet. However, when this is the footer video, lesson 7, so we have to go exact to the footer dimensions, because this is where the actual basement walls will be built upon, and then the subfloor, and then the actual logs will be stacked in accordance to all of these dimensions. So they have to be exact. Okay. Now, my footer on my blueprint showed 24 inches wide, which is essentially an 8-inch wall which is going to go in the center of that, and then there's 8 inches on both sides, so it'd be 8 times 3, which is 24 inches wide. And then it said a foot deep. Again, you don't want to be shallow, so if your footer has to be a foot deep, you don't go 8 inches, you don't go 6 inches, because that could crack, and this footer is going to hold up the entire home, which could weigh 10 tons, 100 tons, whatever, however big you're building it. So note, I had what they call the dig-in footer. I don't recommend this because you should build out footer forms. Then you could level the tops of these forms, and also you would make a nice even trough all the way around. However, I did not have the best advice from a gentleman at the home and garden store who thought he was a big office guy who knew everything, sitting at a small desk in the home and garden store. So anyhow, you're going to see that my footer is more than 12 inches deep, and it's more than 24 inches wide on some areas, but the thicker the concrete, the better. You want to go over or excess in concrete than actually under and not enough in concrete, where someday your house could actually snap the footer and actually be off leveled, and your floors cracked, your roof cracked, and everything else. So all right, step 3, you need to rough in the electrical and plumbing and drainage. At this stage of the project, before the footer is poured, you need to have all of these components laid out, and your certified architect plan should label that for you. Now, just a small FYI here, my electrical will be coming in from the basement wall top and down into an electrical panel box, plus my solar batteries and my solar feed will also be coming in from the top portion, and my solar batteries will be resting on the basement floor. So if you have certain types of batteries for your solar panels, you have to do off-gassing, because these are not maintenance free. Now, I purchased the maintenance free, but if you don't have maintenance free, students, you're going to have a vent in your basement to do off-gassing of the batteries that you put in there. And then, of course, for the water feeds, that also is going to be coming in from about 1 foot above the basement floor from a water cistern. And just long story short, the only thing I had to put in was actually a drain. You should have a drain in your basement in case something happens, water pipes freeze or they clog up. You want to make sure that you have the requisite capacity to drain that water out. And of course, I cover in the actual upcoming videos here your drainage and how to do that, and how many feet in the slope of drain that needs to do. So, and if there's a septic tank feed, if you have a bathroom in the basement, yeah, you're going to have to ebb in your septic feed. However, with me, I didn't have a bathroom in the basement, so my septic will be coming in from above and then out through the wall of the home, and then that's pretty much it. So I just had a drain basically to put in, and then that was it for the entire schematic prior to putting in the footer. So step 4, dig the footer to specifications. Now again, if you have forms that you're using, you're going to be building forms out of wood, and you probably know how to do that. Maybe you've looked at some internet videos to kind of show that. But since I'm digging this with a bucket of a Bobcat excavator, I will pretty much get the exact size because the bucket is actually 1 foot deep. So I just need to take out one bucket as I went. And the bucket was actually 2 feet wide. So essentially it was just one bucket all the way around. But I did take out extra when I went back and cleaned up the footer. So I do have extra concrete in the footer, which I'm happy, because extra is always better than not having enough. So, and then again, once you're done digging, please make sure that you are squared. This means that the entire width and length of your footer of course, is to specifications in your certified architect blueprints. But if you go diagonal, you have to square it, which essentially is, since I'm an electrical engineer, my bachelor's degree, it's called Pythagorean theorem, and it's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And so what you're doing is the c squared is your hypotenuse, and so you have two components of the triangle, which is your base and your adjacent, and then you also have a hypotenuse, which is diagonal. You have to ensure that your both diagonals in a square or rectangle are equal when you measure diagonal, because that will give you the perfect square. Otherwise, you may have the length times width properly done. However, it could look like a rhombus where it's slanted and tilted. And that's not what you want. So, and then also, as you look at my schematic here, it looks like I've got a couple of squares, a couple of rectangles. You have to do each one individually and separate and square them. So essentially, I have the big rectangle and then the little square at the top, which is the great room. I had to do two squaring, one for the rectangle, so I measured diagonally both sides, and then one for the square, I measured diagonally on both. And then when both of those, both square and rectangle, were squared, then I was ready to go, and I knew that I could pour the footer at that point, and then my basement wall would be perfectly secured on the center of that footer. So that's what you want to do. Step 5, you want to pour the concrete. Before you do this is a quick tip. Since I have a dig-in footer, I had no means of leveling this, as the concrete truck was rapidly moving around the basement dumping concrete. So about every 4 feet I pounded a stake in. This was prior to the concrete truck coming out. And all the way around the center of the dugout trench was a stake I pounded in, and it was perfectly leveled all the way around. Like, I pounded in one stake, and I made it flush with like the outside perimeter of the footer, so not the dug-in part, but the actual Mother Earth part. And then I used that stake and I pounded in every 4 feet all the way around the center of the trench, and then I leveled all the stakes all the way around, so that way when the concrete truck comes and they start pouring rapidly concrete, I just took the trowel and made sure it was as high as the top of that stake, and then I knew I was level at every 4 feet. So that was pretty good. And then caution, remember to tell the concrete company that you are pouring a footer, because footer concrete is a lot different than your wall concrete, and also it's different than your basement floor concrete, which is very smooth. It's as smooth as a baby's bottom usually. But the footer concrete will come out with stones in it, because it's a lot stronger, and it'll give that extra strength that's needed in your footer as well. And then of course you also have to lay out number 5 rebar all the way around. So the issue is number 5 is a lot thicker than number 4. Now you're going to use number 4 rebar in the next lesson when you pour your basement walls, because you're going to use number 4 rebar in the wall itself. However, for number 5 rebar, it's more industrial grade and thicker and stronger. And consult your certified blueprints to see what needs to be done. But mine actually required 2 rows, and it was 90-degree elbowed over. I was able to bend them with my foot. Number 5 rebar is just at the point where you barely can't bend it with your own strength. You might need a vise, but I was able to bend them as long as they were long pieces, and then I hooked them around. They also sell these little feet that go on it. You can actually wrap the number 5 rebar onto it, and the foot pads will actually go into the trench and lift it up about 4 inches. However, in talking to the contractors and masonry guys, and that's another tip for you students, is prior to even building this, you need to have hundreds of hours of talking to contractors, watching videos on the internet, speccing out all of your prints. Again, I had my prints a year in advance because the log home company said that they could just tool up the mill and have my logs milled in about 10 days. Just give them a call when I'm ready. But I had everything, all the bolts listed, all the sizes, all the tools needed for the bolts, all the anchor bolts, what all of the definitions meant on all these blueprints. And I had spent hundreds of hours talking to people and watching online videos to make sure I understood the entire scope of the project, even before I set to work on my do-it-yourself project for the very first day. So, all right, so again, lay out your number 5 rebar around the perimeter, and then what you're going to do is the concrete company will roll onto your property. It might take 2 trucks, 2.5 trucks. I'm not sure. Typically a truck is about 8 to 10 yards of concrete. And then they're going to put the chutes together, and you're going to be down in the hole, and the truck driver is going to have a control pad on his shoulder, and he's going to start throwing that cement down. So your job is to ensure that the cement goes in the trough, and you're going to move it around and give it a generous amount. Don't go skimpy. And then you're going to start smoothing out your footer once the first truckload is done and he pulls off and the next truckload is getting in position. You're going to actually take your cement trowel and smooth out the footer to the tops of those stakes that you pounded in. Now you're going to have to go fast because these guys work fast, and I would start in a corner, because when that cement comes out, since you're a novice, you've never done this before like I hadn't, you got to understand how to move that chute quickly and effectively, and then not move it too fast to where now you've got less concrete in one area of the footer and then too much concrete in another area. It's best to even it all out, and then that way when you smooth it out afterwards, you got a lot less work to do. So, and then what you're going to do is take the number 5 rebar that you got laid out, and you should already have them bent around the corners, and you're going to simply place them in to the cement. It's not going to be watery, but it's going to be thicker than soup. And then just use your trowel and push it down, since it's a foot. It's a foot deep, pretty much. Your trough. I would push it down 5-6 inches, and then and you can use your trowel to measure it. And then you're going to double them up on the length of your footer, and then do that around the perimeter as you do. And then you can wave goodbye to the guys. They're probably going to be cleaning their trucks and their tools with their onboard water system that they have on the cement trucks. And then make sure you give it final inspection. Make sure everything is leveled. You can laser level those stakes again. And then you can even carve your name into the footer, so that if it's ever dug up, somebody would know that you did it. There you go. So, all right, so that's it. In closing, be sure to click the thumbs up button, like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and always check out our free resources at www.university1310.org, and please drop us a $5 or $10 tax deductible donation to ensure that these resources are always free. Okay, Professor Z signing out, and Godspeed, students.